With that, I want to bring in Alex Jaquez, Chief of Policy at Groundwork Collective, Sarah Matthews, who served as Deputy White House Press Secretary in the first Trump administration. She's now a spokesperson for the group Home of the Brave. My longtime colleague, Richard Wolff, who was former executive editor of MSNBC.com and was my boss when I was like 22, and former senior advisor to Kamala Harris, Mike Nellis. Mike, I'm going to start with you. That voter that we just heard from still had a Trump sticker with her, and yet she was moved to tears at one point about the state of the economy. I think it's a good reminder for all of us. The politics is important, but the people are at the center of it. And I wonder if you think this is a moment where folks are finally starting to realize what has long been true, which is that a lot of the Trump policies sound populist, but aren't actually, and harm a lot of the people that have voted for him in the past.
Yeah, I think people feel hoodwinked, right? Like Donald Trump is acting like we just invented the word affordability. I've heard him say the same thing about groceries. He's like, nobody ever talked about groceries until I came along.
He literally campaigned on that.
Right. He's like, I invented the word. I don't understand it. It's like he got elected on a single promise, really two promises, but a single promise of when I get elected, everything will get less expensive. And now he's acting like, well, why did you guys think I'd be able to get anything done on that? And meanwhile, the tariffs are making everything more expensive. He's launching this illegal war. He has no idea how to get out of. Gas prices are skyrocketing. And I really feel bad for that mom and for all the people out there who thought that their lives were going to get better. And now they're just watching Donald Trump make billions of dollars. It's awful. And that's why he's going to lose in November.
Yeah, that woman is also not an outlier. I have had conversations like that, but I also want to play some more of the conversations that my colleague Alex Tabbitt had in Ohio. Watch.
You can't save now. Every dollar you have has to go to gas, groceries, bills, rent. The economy's terrible, and our leadership is not as good as it used to be. He's more doing for him than he is for the people.
Low class might as well, crawl in a hole because they can't afford anything. I feel bad for our seniors right now, too.
Sarah, if I think back to the first Trump campaign that I covered, the first Trump White House that you were in, he actually used to do a great job of understanding where his base was. It's partly why he started veering into some conspiracy theories. There are darker aspects of tracking where your base goes if you're Trump, but also he was sort of able to stay on top of immigration as a strong issue for him, the economy previously a strong issue for him. And now, is this a result of the isolation that we've seen reported time and again about this version of Trump in the White House?
Yeah, I do think that to an extent, Trump has always been willing to distort reality and bend it into his world narrative. But I do think that this isolation that's happening in Trump 2.0 is making it even worse, where he can't understand that people are talking about affordability because he only surrounds himself with enablers and sycophants who tell him what he wants to hear. So they're telling him, sir, everything's great. We're in the golden age of America. And he knows that if he surrounds himself with people like that, then yes, they're going to keep him happy, tell him what he wants to hear. But what they're telling him is so much further from the truth than what people are actually experiencing. And it's really frustrating because when in the mashup earlier at the top of the show, you showed him say, I'm not getting credit for anything and whining about things. When you look at those video clips that you played of a woman at the gas pump crying to Alex about how she can't afford her bills and how she's trying to provide for her children. This is a serious issue, and all he does is make it about himself and whine and complain because he's a big baby. And so he doesn't like hearing anything negative about the economy, and instead is actually repeating the failed playbook of the Biden administration, trying to gaslight people and tell them everything's great when that just isn't the reality for most Americans across the country.
Yeah, Sarah, you and I have talked about this before, the parallels that I can't help but see between the ways that the Biden administration tried to explain, hey, the markets are actually pretty good, things are pretty level, and then, of course, the way that that didn't work in the 2024 election. People felt like, okay, maybe the markets are good, but I still can't afford the things that I need to buy at the grocery store. And I think, Richard, we are hearing that still from other members of this Trump administration. I want to play the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, yesterday, talking about the K-shaped economy, which is the shorthand to refer to the gap between the rich and the poor.
I got sick of hearing about this K-shaped economy. I can say here definitively, the K-shaped economy is over.
Wealth gap is over. Probably news to people without big stock portfolios. But our friend Stephanie Ruhle often talks at this network about the dissonance between the Wall Street guys that she talks to who say, I don't know, market's up, looks pretty good, and then the rest of the Americans who consistently feel, and I just came back from Michigan where clearly this was the prevailing attitude, that the system doesn't work for them.
Right. The problem with the economy, just like healthcare, is that you don't have to be an economic analyst. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't even have to have worked on Wall Street. Everyone is their own economic analyst. They know what's going on in their pocketbook. You can tell them as much as you like about the statistics or whatever's K-shaped or what isn't. They know how they feel because they can see it every day. So this is not a problem unique to Donald Trump. It's not even Biden. You know, Obama had the same thing in 2010 when he wasn't responsible for the financial collapse, when things were getting better, but people didn't feel it. It's gone on for decades now, and you cannot talk your way out of it. So the numbers are the numbers. We need to retire the phrase populist because it's not popular anymore. It doesn't track, and it's hurting them not just on the economy, but on their credibility. They're out of touch.
I have a feeling Senator Warren is going to use the word populist in our next segment in a slightly different way. But you're probably right when it comes to Trump, because the bottom line of the populist policies that he's pushed, again, have cut very crosswise with the very people who are voting in hopes that it helps them. Alex, you do a lot of work on this topic around how voters are feeling about this president, about how voters are feeling of systems that might not work for them. Can you take us inside that a little bit against the backdrop of this new Reuters poll, for example, that shows voters now prefer Democrats over Republicans on the economy for the first time in a decade, 37 to 36%. So it's close, but notable given Republicans always had the edge there.
That's right. And I think Senator Warren will be on to talk about some of the ways that she thinks Democrats can really regain that edge. But really what we're seeing is a deterioration in the trust of Republicans and in Trump. 73% of people think that Trump is focused on something that isn't their most important issue, which is prices. He's at record low levels of support on the economy. And people, they say they're living paycheck to paycheck. 49% of people say that they are doing worse financially than they were a year ago. And those stats are poison when you are trying to make a case on the economy, when Trump is trying to go out there and say everything is fine. Look, people are right. We tried it. We tried to say that the market was good, that incomes were going up. But when prices were high, people were not feeling it. And more so, they rejected us not taking them seriously. I think that's what Trump is in real danger of right now, is people just tuning him out because they really don't believe him.
Yeah, and certainly I think Democrats are keen to make this a referendum. You can do that in a midterm, but I think pushing forward with a proactive message in 2028 is going to be one of the big items on a Democratic to-do list. You know, Richard, I think before we even get there, there is some skepticism from maybe some unexpected places, Trump allies like Larry Kudlow, about the economy. He pressed Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville recently about the bad polling on the economy just yesterday.
Is the economy today getting worse or better? 56% worse, 37% better. That's a 20-point deficit, sir. Those are bad numbers.
There is an economic. Our economy is really good.
Yes.
If you look at all the factors, it's all out there.
I mean, him saying that those are bad numbers is just recognizing a political reality that I'm not sure the president is often confronted by, but that Republicans on the Hill that I talk to certainly are aware of.
Yeah, look, you can fool some of the people all of the time, but there aren't enough of those people now to get the Republican Party reelected to take control of Congress again. Yeah. So, you know, the bigger problem we have here is that you cannot invent how people feel about the economy. And as much as the statistics may be feeling right for the Republicans, it's not about the pace of change. It's the absolute numbers. Prices may be going up less quickly, but they're still perceptibly higher than they used to be. There's no talking your way out of it.
Hey, Alex, when we talk about the economy and we talk about systems that don't work, I think that brings us to a different conversation that's related, and it's about corruption, draining the swamp, if you will. I mean, certainly that's something that Trump tried to campaign on and has been left in the dust. Haven't heard him say it recently. But where are Democrats when it comes to helping voters make these connections between the systems not working because of the people who are in power making decisions about the systems?
I think they often don't go far enough to connect it. I think we need to make a clear and direct line between the corruption that we're seeing every day from Trump and his administration and the material harms that are impacting voters. And that's right in the pocketbook. Last year, the signature law for the GOP and for Trump was cutting taxes primarily for billionaires and large corporations while taking away food assistance and health care for ordinary working families at the behest of their largest donors. And making that connection, what is happening in your pocketbook, what is happening to high prices, is driven directly by Trump's enabling of corporate wrongdoing and of corruption, I think is the winning message. And keeping it too abstract, I think, just gets people to tune out. They think, look, both parties are corrupt. Who are we dealing with here? And so making the ties really tangible, I think, is going to be critical.
And so to that end, Mike, the opportunity is there for Democrats.
Yes.
And certainly multiple members of Congress that I talk to say, well, the message has to be that. Is the message that right now?
No, I think, in fact, way too many Democrats are still focused on attacking Donald Trump. And the truth is, he's going to give us an attack ad a day that we can just run. Every time he goes out there and tries to gaslight the American people into believing that the economy is strong when it's not, he does service to the Democratic Party's chances in the midterms. So Democrats need to be really clear to articulate our plans. And we can't just keep relying on the same stuff. We can't keep shouting about a $15 minimum wage. We've been talking about that for 20 years now. People right now don't believe that when we get in, we're going to be able to do anything. That's a big part of the reason that Democrats are unpopular right now. We're more popular than Donald Trump is, but that's not saying very much. And so the reason, for instance, like Abdul El-Sayed won this primary on Tuesday, is there's new, fresh ideas. There's fresh energy. There's fresh momentum. And a lot of people in the establishment and the Democratic Party are frustrated with the rise of candidates like Abdul, but they're the only ones who have the energy. They're the ones who feel like they have new ideas. So if you're like the Third Way today has announced they're going to spend $15 million to take on DSA candidates, I think that money would probably be better spent going after Republicans in the fall. But you need some new ideas. You need some fresh energy. You need better and younger candidates. So it's time for that wave of change to come, because people are going to make that change whether we like it or not. And they will turn to candidates they might not understand. They might turn to candidates that aren't perfect fits for their district, but they're going to take a risk on something that's different because the system is broken. That's how we got Trump in the first place. A healthy economy never lets Donald Trump get elected president of the United States.